The opposite of mentally strong is not mentally weak, right? We all have a baseline of mental strength to build from. If you go to the gym to become physically stronger, you go in to work your muscles, right? And when you go in, you don't go to the gym saying, I'm going to work every single muscle in my body all the time. You'd be exhausted. And what happens is you go in with a plan and a regimen, and you decide, okay, I want to maintain certain muscles and I want to build other muscles and really invest heavy in them. Yeah. And that's the way it works with mental strength.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another knowledge bomb episode of Leap to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Leap to Greatness, we have
got Mautz.
And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
I'm an ex-corporate veteran. I spent over 30 years in the corporate world. I started out in mortgage investment banking, and I ended up at Procter Gamble, where I spent over 2.5 decades in their marketing and their general management organization. And I grew up through the organization. As it relates to my story, I would say about halfway through my corporate experience, I started understanding that what I really wanted to do, in life was broaden my platform for making a difference with the written and the spoken word. And that's what I'm doing today. And that's exactly what I decided to start planning to do about halfway through. And, I actually wrote my first book when I was still in corporate. And I guess I understood, that I guess I wasn't at least the worst person in the world at speaking to groups and to writing. And I came across the topic that we're going to talk about today of mental strength and began using it as a counterpoint to really study what discerns the very best leaders from those that just happen to be put in leadership positions. And I became incredibly interested in it and have been studying it for over 2 decades. And that just kind of flowed right into about a decade ago, Cedric, when I decided to leave corporate and strike it out on my own as an author, a writer, a speaker, a trainer, and a workshopper. A lot of people think mental strength is interchangeable with EQ, emotional intelligence, which of course is the ability to get your emotions working for you versus against you. The thing is EQ is just a slice of the broader umbrella that is mental strength. So then what is the definition of mental strength? It's simply this. Mental strength is the ability to regulate not only your emotions productively, but also your thoughts and your behaviors. Despite circumstances, especially in adversity. As I like to say, shorthanded, it's how we manage internally, Cedric, so that we can lead better externally at work. As to how I came across this, just a little bit of a further definition. Mental strength boils down to 6 core mental muscles. Fortitude, confidence, boldness, decision-making, goal focus, ability to stay focused on your goals and keep the troops focused on their goals, and messaging, the ability as a leader to stay positive-minded, even in the face of negativity with your messaging and how you carry yourself and the vibe that you send out. So these 6 core mental muscles, the thing about them is that I think we all know that, if you want to succeed at work and in life, you have to be able to self-regulate, right? And that's one of the themes that cuts through all of these. You have to be able to self-regulate to maintain strong confidence, to be bold, to be decisive, to have fortitude and resilience. We know that. We know that you need that to succeed. But here's the secret. Doing that is really hard. It is really hard to regulate your emotions and your thoughts and your behaviors. And so I discovered a long time ago that because of this combination of 6 mental muscles and the power that they bring to the table, I truly believe that mental strength is the leadership superpower of our times. It is going to be the next EQ. It's already starting to show up that way. It is going to be the next thing that you hear about more than any other leadership attribute over the next 10 years. And it makes sense when you think about it, because think about the world that we live in. There's not going to be less adversity, Cedric. There's only going to be more adversity, more setbacks, more opportunity for us to doubt ourselves, more potential distractions. So the need for mental strength is only going to continue to grow. Does that surprise you to hear that I call that the leadership superpower of our times?
Yeah. And here's the thing, emotional intelligence alone has done so much for me as a leader, the way I show up. I was at an event yesterday meeting the community, and one of the guys in line, I wouldn't have said this years ago, but he was having a bad day. And I responded to it, not personal, but I was able to handle that. And it was all because of the emotional intelligence, being aware of that. But I mean, this right here, I mean, you're talking about taking it to the next level. This is amazing. So yes, I totally agree.
And here's the good thing too. You achieved great results in what you just described, Cedric, and it doesn't stop there. So you might find this interesting. I did one study in particular, and I've done it 4 or 5 times since then, that really started to drive me to want to write this book years ago, The Mentally Strong Leader,
Yeah.
which was, I conducted a study of over 3,000 executives, Cedric, and I asked them one question. Thinking of the highest achieving organizations that you've ever been a part of,
Yeah.
that achieved and accomplished the most, describe for me the key attributes of the leader of that organization at that point in time. And I have been astonished to find out every time I run this, 3,000 executives at a time, between 90 to 91% of the people describe the same profile of the same type of leader. They describe fortitude and boldness coming to the table. They describe leaders that are confident and decisive, that stay positive, and that are, really have the ability to bold and take risks when they most need to. And here's the most interesting part, Cedric. After I get these results, I then follow back with the 3,000 respondents and I say, okay, thank you for describing that leader to me. Now, I want you to take this pick list, and I hand them, they get a sheet of paper. There's over 100 terms on it. And I say, now, you can only pick one term, that 1 or 2 word term, to describe now the leader that you just described to me in depth. Please do that, choosing from this list.
Wow.
95 to 96% of the respondents circled the 2 words, mentally strong,
Wow.
when I hand it to them. And what that says to me, Cedric, is we may have finally found the term that can accurately describe those leaders that we've experienced in our life, that especially in times of adversity, that lead organizations to incredible achievement and incredible accomplishments. They are mentally strong. They are decisive and they are bold. They take risks. They're confident. They can keep everyone focused on their goals. They stay positive even in the face of negativity.
Yeah.
It's what makes me think that it's the superpower of our times. And like you said, look how hard EQ worked for you, Cedric.
Yeah.
Imagine if EQ is just a piece of the broader umbrella called mental strength that is just now starting to come into the consciousness of many across the world.
I love this. And what was so great about it, like I said, EQ, and you saying it's just a piece of it. I'm like, man, if I got that piece and it got me those results, definitely want to learn more about that. So let's talk about the mentally strong leader. Let's talk about this book and let's talk about some things, maybe some stories of some results from this book, that somebody read this book and said, man, Scott, thank you so much because this book has done this.
Yeah, I can't. I'm very excited to share this story because it just happened not even 2 days ago. I heard back. So, just a little bit of background to set this up for you, Cedric. So let me start by saying that hey, the opposite of mentally strong is not mentally weak, right? We all have a baseline of mental strength to build from. You just have to understand, to begin the journey, what your starting point is. So in The Mentally Strong Leader, the second chapter is titled The Mental Strength Self-Assessment. It took me over 3 years to develop a 50-question self-assessment quiz that you take. Working with a data scientist, we worked it out. You take 50 questions. It takes you about 15 minutes, Cedric. And I'm getting to your question in just a second, I swear.
Absolutely.
So it takes you about 15 minutes of quiet reflection and honesty and vulnerability. When you're done, it produces an overall mental strength score. And you could score in one of 4 tiers, all the way from the top tier, which is you're a beacon of mental strength. People are literally drawn to you because of the level of mental strength you have. Or you could be all the way down at the quote unquote bottom tier where you're a novice. You're just starting to learn about the concept and you're growing stronger every day, but you're working at it. And there's tiers in between. No one tier is better than any other. It's all about you and your journey and where you are.
Mhm.
Now, the assessment also produces scores by mental muscle. So you determine, okay, what's my fortitude score? What's my confidence score? What's my boldness score? My decision making score, and so on. And now to your question. Here's what happened the other day that was really cool and really gratifying. I encourage people to not only take the assessment, but then to take the assessment again after having lived with the book and used the over 50 plus tools that are in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, to build your mental strength. And
Yeah.
then take the assessment again, perhaps 3 months later or 6 months later, whatever works for them. And I have heard back from hundreds of people now, and the book just came out a few months ago. I'm already hearing back, Cedric, from hundreds and hundreds of people saying they're seeing a marked, measurable improvement in their mental strength. And most importantly, in the areas that they're most interested in strengthening. And if you think about it for a second, I want you to equate mental muscles to physical muscles,
Yeah.
right? If you go to the gym to become physically stronger, you go in to work your muscles, right? And when you go in, you don't go to the gym saying, I'm going to work every single muscle in my body all the
Yeah.
time. You'd be exhausted. That would be exhausting, right? Wednesday is back day, Thursday is leg day, Friday is arm and stomach day. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And what happens is you go in with a plan and a regimen, and you decide, okay, I want to maintain certain muscles, and I want to build other muscles and really invest heavy in them.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works with mental strength. Once you can assess and understand, these are the mental muscles I've already developed, thanks to the assessment. I now know that these are the ones I want to maintain. And then
Yeah.
these are the ones where I'm weak. You can build your own tailored mental strength training regimen. And that is one
Yes.
big result I've been hearing back from readers, is that I'm able to build my own tailored mental strength training regimen to get mentally stronger in the way that's right exactly for me.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty cool to hear that.
This book actually was published on May 7th,
Yeah,
according to Amazon. I
yeah,
purchased the book and I also purchased the Audible when I'm driving. And I'm really looking forward to looking at this book. And here's the thing, I'm looking at the book. The book just came out and I'm looking at the 5-star reviews already. So this book is doing very well. So listen, leaders, this is a book that you want to get in your library. I mean, there's some great information, great feedback that I'm watching right now on Amazon about this book. So thank you, Scott. It's a book came out by John C. Maxwell. It's called The 5 Levels of Leadership. It shows me where I am in that 5 levels. I mean, at one point I was, I was like, golly, I'm a 2 and I need to work. Then you're 2.5 and then you become a 3 and it gives you something to work towards. And that's what I'm hearing right now. And that's what I'm seeing in these reviews, that it has that type of thing, something like a gas needle where you can go back and you can look at it. What's your thought on that? Or expound on that.
yeah. You're exactly right. I humbly share and very excited to share that Dan Pink has read and endorsed the book, and there's a quote from him right on the front cover. He calls it, the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, an indispensable resource. And
Mm.
that's what it was written as, Cedric. It's not a breezy beach read, where you go on and you can flip through it in a half an hour, you get one idea and you go away and you move on to the next book. It's packed with over 50 plus tools to help you
Yeah.
build the habits to become mentally stronger in the way most important to you, across those 6 mental muscles that have been
Yeah.
correlated with mental strength. And
Yeah.
it's meant to be the type of book that you can return to over and over again. Most people tell me that their book, after using it for a month, it has like 15 different colored sticky notes that they put in there for, okay, I want to go back to this section again repeatedly, and this section and this section. And that's how I wrote the book, to be a resource and a guide to you on a going basis.
I love it. I love it, Scott. I want to ask you this. What are some practical habits that leaders can develop to effectively regulate their emotions in a high stressful environment or situation?
Yeah, boy, doesn't that happen a lot? It probably
Absolutely.
happens once or twice a week to us.
Absolutely.
So it's a tool in the mentally strong leader that I talk about quite a bit. I'm asked to talk about a lot. It's called the redirect rhythm, Cedric, and I'm
Mm.
going to teach it to you right now.
All right.
And it really is powerful for helping you to navigate your negative emotions in the moment. And you know what I'm talking about, Cedric, where I'm sure you've been in a situation where, I don't know, maybe you're in an argument with somebody at work
Mm.
or in life, and you're really starting to feel frustrated and angry, or any number of emotions are welling up inside, and you're worried that it's going to spill over into an unproductive outcome. There's a really powerful technique that I want to teach to you. It's called the redirect rhythm. And man, it really, really works, and it's simple. And with practice, all your listeners can do this too. So the next time you find yourself trying to navigate your negative emotions, there's really just a couple of easy steps that happen with the redirect rhythm, one right after another. I'll take you through each step and then the trigger sentence you can say to yourself to remember that step. The first step is you have to just stop and take a breath. And I
Mm.
know most people know that, but I'm going to explain why it's so important. First of all, not only from a physiological standpoint does it slow your heart rate down, slows your stress response down, it gets your neurotransmitters to fire differently so that you can think more clearly. We all know that. It also allows you to create space, to create distance from the intensity of the emotion. It allows you to break the gravitational pull of that emotion that is about to pull you somewhere that you don't want to be.
Mm.
So why take a breath? Because of that. You need to create distance from the emotion. And then in that moment, while you're taking a breath, your brain switches gears and it goes to the
Ah.
next step, which is, and this is really important, to name the emotion that you're feeling. Literally, the trigger thought is, okay, so what am I feeling? And what happens when you do that is it allows you to distance yourself from that emotion further. You begin to, that emotion loses its hold over you because you can identify it as a thing that you're experiencing and feeling, not a thing that you have to follow through on. So, for example, let's say that you're feeling incredibly frustrated. Cedric, you and I are in an argument, right? And
Mhm.
you don't feel like I'm listening to you, and you can feel that you're feeling frustrated. So you take a breath.
Mm.
You say to yourself, "Okay, I'm feeling very frustrated right now," and you go right to the next step, right? So you've named your emotion. You know it's frustration. It's now this
Mm.
thing. You know what's going on, so you can already start to dissipate from it. Then you go to the final step, which is where you reassess and you redirect, right? You ask yourself, okay, so what's really happening and what am I going to do next about it? And you say to yourself, okay, so what's really happening is I don't feel like Scott's not listening. I don't feel like he's really listening to me. But I need to control my reaction here and then just simply ask him, can I repeat what I said? And can I ask you to listen a little bit more closely this time? Cognitive behavioral therapists also call this method the three C's: catch it, check it, change it. It works every time. If you can take a breath, create space from the gravitational pull that's pulling you where you don't want to go, name that emotion, and then reassess what's happening and redirect, it works. And it works every time, Cedric. Once you start practicing it, now I do it without even thinking. The steps happen so fast.
Scott, that is a knowledge bomb, and that is a great habit to develop. And it's one thing I do know about habits. It start off and you have to think about it. It's like driving a car. I remember the first time I started driving a car, when it was time to hit the brakes, I had to really focus and all this. But now I don't remember the lights being red or green. So I do know how habit is, man. Thank you for that, Scott. I think that's very, very helpful to leaders on today. So once you do that, you do the catch it, check it, and change it, and you're going through all of these things. What is the next step in the process of moving forward to make sure that it is a habit being created and not just a one-time thing?
Excellent question. So habits really at their core are really repetitions, right?
Yeah.
They're frameworks and systems. And in fact, by the way, the subtitle of the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, is Build the Habits to
Mm.
Productively Regulate
Let's
Your Emotions, Your Thoughts, and Your Behaviors. And that's by
love it.
design,
Love
Cedric,
it.
because
Uh,
the book is filled with habit building science.
uh,
And to your question, there's each tool, including the one I just talked about, the redirect rhythm, it's
mm.
built on habit building science. So the redirect rhythm, there's a visual in the book that you can use. And I've had one or two clients that even had the visual of the 3 steps printed on the back of their hand because they have a problem with anger management.
Wow.
So the visual is its system and a framework in itself. That helps you. Then each tool also comes with a section called your first small step, which is, if you want to build any habit, Cedric, you have to know what that first small step is to take. And a lot of times we don't actually form habits because we don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And in the redirect rhythm, you have to start with your first small step, which is simply take a breath. Get used to, as soon as you start feeling, the first thing you should do without even thinking about it is take a breath. Then the rest of the exercise flows from there. And now here's the real key. If you really want to form a habit out of it, you have to know what to do in moments of weakness, where you feel yourself breaking down, where the redirect rhythm vibe, the flow, the steps, but you can still feel yourself losing your emotion, and you're afraid it's about to translate right over into words that aren't going to be helpful. So you have to be aware of what to do in moments of weakness, which is, in that case, if you can feel yourself breaking down, if that's truly the case, you have to step away from the discussion and ask for permission to come back so that you can gather your thoughts and then implement the redirect rhythm once again. And it's really knowing that first small step and what to do when in that moment of weakness that's going to help you take that exercise and every exercise in the book to the next level and truly become a habit. Let me talk about the confidence muscle for a second. Confidence muscle it's one of the 6 muscles of mental strength. One of the ones, statistically speaking, we see in our research that most people have to work on, right? Most of us, even if we believe we're fairly confident, can quickly spiral down if we have a bad meeting or someone gives us some criticism we weren't ready for, right? So we can really quickly engage in negative inner chatter, right? Where we start to beat ourselves up over and over again with negative self-thoughts. And self-acceptance, here's a perfect example in self-awareness. If you are self-aware, in that moment when you're beating yourself up, that you need to take a self-compassion break. This is one of the tools I describe in the Mentally Strong Leader, and here's how it works, right? It comes from self-awareness. You recognize first, you have to be self-aware. There's 3 steps here, a pre-step first. You have to be self-aware when you're beating yourself up, right? And I don't know if this ever happened to you, Cedric, but there's been times when, remembering that I teach this stuff, right? Where I'll be sitting in my reflective silence thinking, and then all of a sudden I become self-aware that I've been beating myself up for like the last 5 minutes, right? I got to stop that. So you go to step number 1, where in that moment when you catch yourself doing it, you say, I am going to stop beating myself up for beating myself up. I'm doing it again, but that's okay. I'm going to go right to step 2. In that moment, instead of beating yourself up, you decide you're going to talk to yourself like you would a friend in need.
Wow.
Right? If I came up to you, and then I'll get to the 3rd step. If I came up to you, though, Cedric, just to demonstrate the 2nd step and how self-awareness comes into play. If I came up to you, Cedric, and I was clearly in need of compassion, right? And we're old friends, and I want to tell you a story, and you could tell that I'm looking for compassion from you. And would you do this to me? So I start telling you the story. Oh, Cedric, I just got out of a meeting with my boss. I really blew it. He asked me questions I wasn't ready for. I felt like an idiot. I was stumbling backwards. Would you interrupt me after 5 minutes and say, okay, Scott, I've heard enough of the story. And I'm coming to a conclusion that you're a complete loser, right? Would you talk to me that
No
way,
way.
Cedric?
No way.
There's no way you would talk to me.
No way. Never.
So it raises the question, so why would you talk to yourself that way?
Wow.
Ever. And it takes self-awareness to understand that you don't talk to yourself that way. You talk to yourself like you would a friend in need, which takes you to the 3rd step of, the self-compassion break, which is where you have the self-awareness to remember what I call the 90-10 rule. 90-10 is a formula, a ratio, Cedric, for how you should value yourself, which is to say 90% of how you value yourself should be based on self-worth, self-appreciation, self-love, self-awareness. 10% on assigned worth, what other people think of you. And the problem arises, a lot of people say, well, Scott, shouldn't you be teaching the 100-0 rule, that 100% of how you value yourself should only be based on your self-appreciation, self-awareness, self-love, and 0 on what other people think? But that's not realistic. We all need that 10% occasional slice of external validation to help us feel valued and valuable, worthy and worthwhile. The problem arises, Cedric, to finish out this point, when we're not self-aware enough to realize this. The problem arises when we start to chase approval instead of authenticity.
Wow.
The problem arises when we start to focus on winning love rather than giving love.
Mm.
And just like that, with one tool, armed with self-awareness, you can engage in the self-compassion break to pull yourself out of the way you beat yourself up with negative inner chatter, all driven by self-awareness. Meanwhile, back at the office, if people don't understand the rules of risk-taking,
wow,
they're not going to take risks either. So leaders, if you want to create an organization, if you want to create a team that is mentally strong, willing to be bold, willing to take risks, you have to think through the kind of questions that they ask and that you can ask them and that you can answer for them. For example, imagine if you define the rules of risk-taking for your organization. Number one, what does a good risk look like?
Yeah.
Tell your organization what that looks like. What does a bad one look like? What happens if you succeed with a risk? What happens if you fail with a risk? Who needs to approve what level of risk and so on? And in fact, in the Mentally Strong Leader, I have a list of over 20 questions you can use, Cedric, as a kind of a questionnaire to answer, okay, what are the rules of risk taking? And you were asking how mental strength can play out across teams.
Yeah.
There's a perfect example of it. It takes self-awareness and intention to be able to do that and build it on a team level. If you go back to the original study I was talking about, when they describe mentally strong leaders, that tells you the accumulation of being a leader that can employ those 6 mental muscles, have resilience, that can be bold, that can have great decision-making powers, stay focused on your goals, stay positive-minded, those 6 mental muscles, it so strongly correlates with achievement. And in fact, more so than any other mental muscles that could be out there. And you could be thinking, okay, so Scott, you listed 6 mental muscles. Why those 6 mental muscles? Well, because it goes back to, they all have the common theme, Cedric, of self-regulation. It requires self-regulation to be mentally strong. Think about it, even for people that are incredibly confident, right? When you talk to them, and by the way, confidence is not the absence of doubt. It's your ability to manage your relationship with doubt, because we all have that relationship.
I love it.
And even for people that are super confident, they can have slips. And when they have slips, it's very easy to lose self-regulation and have that spiral down.
Yes. Wow, Scott, this is great, man. You really dropped some knowledge on us, a lot of great gems and information that we can take with us that will last for a lifetime, where people will go to this episode 187, and say, man, Scott changed my life. He took my mental health to the next level. So we're definitely excited about that. So if someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, Scott, where should they go?
Yeah, sure. Go to scottmautz.com, SCOTTMAUTZ.com. You can find out about, all the books that I write, especially, the latest, the Mentally Strong Leader. You can learn about the workshops and the keynotes that I give on the topics of mental strength and leadership. And I put together a gift for your audience today, Cedric, and I want to mention the website for that. If your listeners are interested in a 60-page free downloadable PDF, it includes the mental strength self-assessment and prompts that will help you get the most out of the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. If that sounds interesting to you, just go to scottmautz.com/mentally strong gift. You can download it right away.
Scott, thank you for dropping the knowledge on us, man. This is so amazing. Hats off to you for your book. I mean, you're doing some great things with it, changing lives. As I say, I've seen in the comments, lives are changing and individuals are growing, just becoming better because of this. So thank you. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, Scott, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thanks for having me here, Cedric. I appreciate what you do.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.